If you go into the woods tonight, you're sure of a big surprise. No teddy bear picnics here. Just a creepy tale to inspire fear. Pay no attention to those strange noises and bumps in the night that you hear while this story is taking place and unfolding. It's likely just the Shadow Men. Hello, and welcome to Virtual Haunted Campfire with Mark Leslie. I'm Mark Leslie. This is Barnaby Bones. It's not quite dark enough yet, but I've got the candles lit just to try and get us a little bit in the mood for this virtual tale. Now, The Shadow Men is the story I'm going to share tonight, and it's a really short tale. It was meant specifically to be read around a campfire. Now, The Shadow Men appears in my collection, Bumps in the Night, which keep listening, there'll be a chance for you to win an audiobook version of this. And it was originally written for Tim Deal's anthology, Northern Haunts. And this was basically meant to be 100 terrifying New England tales. So you'll actually see why I said it in New Hampshire. And that was published in Northern Haunts. I then republished it in Bumps in the Night. Now, an interesting backstory. So the Shadow Men are allegedly supernatural shadow human type shapes that are potentially believed to be the spirits of the departed. And there's different legends from different parts of the world as to what the Shadow Men are. But like most eerie supernatural phenomenon, there's no real single explanation. And that's what I had fun playing with in the story, The Shadow Men, which we're going to get to. Now, The Shadow Men was inspired by, obviously, shadow people and shadow men, but it was also derived from a story I had published called Erratic Cycles, which appeared in Parsec magazine, which was a Canadian science fiction magazine, and this was in 1998, 1999. This is the illustration that went with it, and Erratic Cycles is basically a story of a man who drives from Toronto, Ontario, up to the north, between Sudbury and Timmins on Highway 144, which is a lonely, desolate, scary place to drive if you've ever been up in that area. And there is a backflash or a scene where he remembers being a child and camping in Northern Ontario. So he's always been afraid of the woods because of this weird experience of camping. And so when I saw Tim Deal post the call for the Northern Haunts, I thought, oh my God, perfect. I can talk about the shadow people. Now, going to read the story in a second, but what I wanted to share before I get into the story is a chance for you, if you like scary tales, chance to win some audio versions of some of my books. Now, I'm going to pop this up on the screen so you can kind of see the ones available. Basically, let me know which audiobook you would prefer. Active Reader, Bumps in the Night, Night Cries, or Ode to Classics. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them. So Active Reader is basically my collection of stories of book nerd horror stories or Twilight Zone stories. And it contains Active Reader, which is a story about a loyalty card for bookstores. Browsers, which is about a bookstore that acts like a Venus flytrap for book nerds like me. And Distractions, which is about a frustrated writer who is suffering from writer's block and he's being distracted too much. So that's one of the options available. The audiobook is read by Eric Moore. Bumps in the Night, which is read by Chris Humphreys, is basically where the Shadow Man comes from. So you'll actually get to hear a better version from Chris. I think I do an okay job, but he's a professional actor, so he does a really good job. This has Erratic Cycles, which was the original story that inspired Shadow Men. It ends with the Shadow Men. It also has a story called Almost, which is like a classic campfire tale inspired from classic campfire tales. And The Pizza Man. And again, Bumps in the Night was meant to be used for stories you could share around a campfire. And the Shadow Men specifically, as you'll see, is one that you're meant to tell actually around a campfire as if it happened to you. Night Cries. This contains, wow, if only I could read A Taste of Darkness. It contains another story called The Pizza Man, so it also appears in that collection. And it has Little Things, which is sort of a dark humor tale. And then the final one, Ode to Classics. The reason it's got this name is because it kind of is a nod to a lot of classic tales. So Memento Mori, A Curious Nightmare is a horror story I wrote inspired by A Curious Dream by Mark Twain. And it riffs off that piece quite a bit. Then I have The Ritual of the Drawing, which is like a classic. It's an ode to Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, and it involves a vampire. And Prospero's Ghost, which is set at a university bookstore, and it's about an old dead professor that comes back to haunt people who dare do something with this book. So we've got those. So just leave a comment. Let me know which of the books you're interested in. I'm going to be doing a random drawing after the live video. So this is being streamed live on Tuesday, April 13th. So if you're watching this after the fact, I'm so sorry. But I'm giving it away to randomly selected folks from the live drawing. And without further ado, I'm going to get right on to reading The Shadow Man, because you're here to be spooked out and creeped out. And this is where I do have to put on the old reading glasses so I can actually read the story. So this is The Shadow Man. And I'm actually going to remove that banner. I'm going to pop up The Shadow Man because, hey, this is what you want to do. And now I'm going to read the story, The Shadow Man. I'll never forget the night that changed my life forever. It happened in the woods when I was 10 years old. It was dark. The air was crispy and chilly. Curious little sounds cut through the night. Small animals rustling in the nearby bushes. The haunting call of a loon on the lake. Leaves whispering in the breeze. And the air was charged with the smell of the still burning embers of a recently doused campfire. It was a night, in fact, not all that different than tonight. I was sleeping in a 4-man tent with my parents and younger brother and woke up with an overwhelming urge to pee. I crawled out of my sleeping bag, careful not to wake anyone else, slipped outside the tent, and headed down the moonlit path where I remembered the outhouse was. Before I took more than a dozen steps, I heard a noise behind me, the crack of a branch breaking underfoot. With my hair standing on edge, I managed not to let out a yelp as I turned. There on the path, not 3 steps behind me, stood my little brother. A look on his cute button-nosed face like I'd just caught him sneaking a treat from the cookie jar. "Jimmy," I whispered, "what are you doing?" He stood with his right leg partially crossed over the left. "Need to pee," he said, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Geez, Jimmy, if you had to go that bad, why'd you wait so long?" "Because," he said, his 6-year-old eyes wide and bright in the reflected moonlight, the Shadow Man might get me." I felt a shiver run down my spine, despite the fact that I knew the Shadow Men were something my father had conjured up that evening around the campfire. They were the boogeymen of the New Hampshire wilderness that hid behind trees and lurked in the shadows. Their sole purpose was to trick little boys down the wrong path in the woods, deeper and deeper into the forest and far from the safety of their parents. Even at 10, I knew my father told that story for fun and perhaps partially to keep us from wandering too far away from them. But when Jimmy said that, I still felt a chill. "The Shadow Men aren't real, Jimmy." "Aren't too! Listen!" At just that moment, the haunting call of a loon echoed through the forest, delivering a deep shiver up the base of my spine. "That's just a loon," I said, but the chill wouldn't go away. "No, listen, Charlie. It's a little boy. One that the Shadow Man tricked. He's warning us." Frustrated with my brother, and okay, a little frightened. I just wanted it to end. I didn't want to hear anymore. So I thought I'd throw a good scare into him. I turned and ran down the path. "Jimmy," I called out, "behind you! The shadow men are behind you!" He let out a cry. "Wait!" Able to see the path clearly in the moonlight, I ran fast, took a sharp turn, and ducked down behind a low bush. Jimmy ran past me, still calling ahead on the trail for me to stop, panic rising in his voice, as he seemed to think I'd gotten really far away from him. I had to put my hands on my mouth to suppress a laugh, but I stayed silent that way, listening to the padding of his footfalls on the packed dirt path as it calls for me to wait, receding into the darkness. His last cry was drowned out by the shrill call of a loon in the distance, and I never saw him again. But I hear him all the time. Now, anytime I'm out in the wilderness, out camping, I can hear my little brother's voice, somewhere masked within the sad, mournful, unearthly, half laughing, half wailing cry of a loon. I can hear my brother warning me that the shadow men are near. Just listen for it and tell me what you hear. So that was the Shadow Man. Very, very short micro story. I am doing this free reading courtesy of the good people at the Writers Union of Canada and Canada Arts Council. This is meant to be a short reading to help creators, help writers in Canada. Thank you to both those wonderful organizations for helping to arrange this. And I wanted to pay it forward and offer you guys a chance to win an audiobook. So again, you have an opportunity to get the audiobook of Active Reader, Bumps in the Night, Night Cries, or Ode to Classics. All you have to do, just leave a comment and you'll be automatically entered. If it's just a regular comment, it's going to be randomly selected, or if you actually leave a comment that tells me what you're looking for. Susan says hi. That counts as a comment. There you go. Kathy from my neck of the woods up in Northern Ontario says awesome. And Maddie says great performance. And she's hiding with the mask on because she's afraid the shadow men are going to get her. And Kathy, you're familiar with the call of a loon up north, just as I am. And Harley, thanks for your comment as well. Glad you enjoyed that. So basically, if there are any questions that you guys have about ghost stories, campfire ghost stories, whatever, I'm happy to answer them. Other than that, any comments that you leave when I finish the broadcast, this is only meant to be less than half an hour long. And Christine, thank you. Yeah, the animated, Christine says, I love the animated shadows. So that was a GIF or a GIF that I found online. And what I did is I went and I found where a loon sound that I was able to use, and I added the loon sound to that and wanted to, of course, give it a little bit of effect. The whole idea is when you tell that story or a version of that story, and feel free to do that, attribution would be great, saying, hey, my dear friend Mark Leslie, this is a ghost story that he shared. But around a campfire, you tell that story. And that's the whole idea of that, because as Kathy knows, because we both grew up in the same small town in Northern Ontario, that is a place where you're going to hear the haunting call of a loon. And I remember J.P. Couvrette was a good friend of mine who I went to high school with, and we used to work at Fox Lake Lodge together in Northern Ontario. He had shared this story, but he called the legend of Old Crooked Neck. And it was basically Old Crooked Neck was going to come to get you. And when you heard the call of a loon, it meant that they were warning you that Old Crooked Neck was coming closer. And so oftentimes stories that I share or that get relayed around the campfire are often based on tales that you've heard before, compilations of different stories. So that's kind of a little bit of the origin of the Shadow Man. I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, I dedicated Bumps in the Night to JP, who sadly passed away in 2012. And it says, thanks for so many good times, laughs, and the blessed memories of working together on those goofy high school skits, the school paper, and ghost stories told around the campfire when we were teens. I miss you, Kuvi. So many of us do, but you should know that you still inspire me. And yeah, JP inspired that story, which was kind of cool. Paul, good to see you. Paul says, thanks for reading Mark. A loon call used to be enjoyable. Arg. Oh, it's okay, Paul. I'll buy you a beer next time I see you at Grain and Grit. And cool. Hey, Lori, thanks for saying hi. And I think Susan is in the running for Ode to Classics. And Ode to Classics is read by Chris Humphreys, who is a Canadian actor and brilliant writer of his own right. Maddie asked the question, was the story based on an actual camping trip you took as a child? Well, that great question, Maddie. Thanks for asking. I'm still afraid when I go on camping trips. Just ask Liz. There have been times we've been in the tent and I've heard scary things, and she's the one who has to go out and check to make sure the boogeyman isn't coming to get us. But no, it wasn't based on a specific camping trip, but I do remember we were with Lori Blake, who's the owner of Fox Lake Lodge, and Lori told the best ghost stories. And then JP and John Ellis and I went back to our cabin. And then, of course, we're still like giddy and excited about all the ghost stories and cool things that Lori was telling around the campfire. And John had his own room. JP and I were on bunk beds in another room. And JP and I were like talking in the dark. And that's when he was sharing the ghost stories. And when he shared the ghost story of Old Crooked Neck, just as he finished the story, a loon call came from across the lake. And I swear I did not sleep for hours. So it was kind of based on my own fears that I have never grown out of. But Lori Blake is actually another inspiration, who's an amazing storyteller. And Prospero's Ghost, which does appear in Ode to Classics, I think that was the one that Susan said she was interested in. So Prospero's Ghost was a story I wrote that was published in Campus Chills originally, which is an anthology based on ghost stories from campuses across Canada. And I used to tell the legend of Prospero's Ghost when I worked at a bookstore. And it was about the ghost of the construction worker who died during the building of the bookstore. And then when I moved, when I was teaching campus camp, Carleton University campus camp, actually, sorry, that's where the original tourist tale came, and it was set in the theater, and it was construction worker who read The Tempest and loved the character of Prospero, and so he was always seen clutching a copy of The Tempest, and so. I moved from bookstore to bookstore to bookstore, and every new bookstore I worked at around Halloween, I would turn all the lights down, bring everyone into the staff room or the middle of the store with just a little bit of light on, just like I had done on stage at Carleton University. And I shared the ghost story of Prospero's Ghost, which was this person who comes back because he's upset that what they did with his copy of the book, and it was based on a story that Lori Blake told around the campfire. And that's one of the ones where when you're telling a ghost story, it's really a great thing to be able to lean in and changing your tone just as you're getting to like the scary part at the end, just bringing everyone right in and leaning forward and into it. And that's a really great feeling. It's really challenging when you're doing a virtual chat or a virtual ghost story. Because when I've told this story, and I've told the story in lighted rooms, when I've done readings at libraries as well, and I can actually see who in the audience is in to the story. And because you can kind of see the reactions of people, it's really great, because then you know that those are the ones who are really into it. And so you give them a little bit more to allow them to be part of it. And Maddie asks this question: how old was your son when you started reading him your spooky stories? Great question, Maddie. I haven't really read. He's like his father. He doesn't do well with scary stuff. So I haven't really read him the spooky stories. I've read some of the dark humor stories. My Snowman Shivers stories, I read those to him when he was younger. And the very first professional story I sold was a science fiction story meant to be read for grade 4 by grade 4 classes in Ontario based on the science curriculum. And I read that to him because it was more of a mystery story. So it wasn't something that was going to harm or damage him. I mean, I was talking to him, he's 16 now. I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, he still hasn't watched the Harry Potter movies because the scene in the first movie when he was young and we were watching it, where the troll comes out of the washroom, and or the troll was in the washroom, that just ruined him. He couldn't. He was too freaked out, and he's still even though he's not afraid of trolls in the washroom anymore, but it's still something that had that impression on him. So I'm just looking at, I think it's 7:20. I'm happy to hang out and share a few more tales, but I do want to say again, thank you to the Writers Union of Canada. Thank you to the Canada Council for the Arts for this opportunity to do this reading. And thank you guys, a live audience. Love the fact that you're leaving comments. I will be doing, when we finish this, I'll be doing a random draw comment to let you know, share an email with me so that we can, I can get you your downloads. So the downloads, I should explain, are going to be available through Authors Direct. And this is an app that you can use on a desktop. You can use it on Android. You can use it on iOS, a tablet or a smartphone. And what I'll do is I'll be sending you a link. It'll automatically add it to your shopping cart with 100% off the price. And then it's synced into an Authors Direct account, and then you can enjoy it however you want to enjoy it. So that's going to be coming up. And I do want to say thank you guys for tuning in and spending part of your evening with me. I hope maybe as we get ready for the summer season, and maybe, in Ontario here, we're in lockdown, but soon enough, maybe we'll be able to get out there. I know we did get an opportunity to do a little bit of camping last year. It was a different experience, but it's still great to get out and be out in the outside and to see the stars when you're away from a city, and to just hear the water of the lake nearby, and just to enjoy that little bit of back to nature. And of course, if you're like me, when there's a campfire, maybe you're inspired to want to share a spooky story, share a chilling tale. Maybe when you're out there, maybe you don't share those tales, but maybe when you hear a branch breaking while you're laying in your tent, or you hear that haunting call of a loon, maybe you'll think about this evening and curse me, just like Paul said he was going to do. So thank you guys so much for attending, for checking this out. If you're watching this post-fact, just going to let you know, you can check out all of my stuff over on markleslie.ca. You can get a hold of some of my content for free. There's links to some of my books. So the Snowman Shivers, for example, which is family safe, is available for free on most platforms. And there are even some versions of some of my stories available through links off of markleslie.ca when I used to do free Friday Frights, where I shared a combination of, I would share a story that I had published before, I would read it, and then talk about it like I'm doing now. And then I would also share some of the research I'd done for some of the true, or Tales Told as True, ghost story books, many of which I published through Dundurn Publishing. So thank you guys again so much. Dale, just going to say, hey, thanks for jumping in, Dale. Good to see you, my friend. And I'm not leaving because you just joined in and said hi. I am leaving because I'm getting towards the end of the evening. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed some of the spookiness, some of the eeriness, and maybe it inspired some tales that you may be able to share around the campfire. So this is Mark Leslie and Barnaby Bones, wishing you a wonderful evening, and maybe not such a chilling evening, but maybe a wonderful, warm evening. Have a great night.